Hi, hello. Today I wanted to introduce you the Ingress Nginx controller. And so I have a three Kubernetes node cluster here. And this is a master node. This is a worker node, demo 2. This is third node, demo 3. So they all have a Cilium agent deployed as to manage the pod. And so in this diagram, I will deploy Ingress Nginx controller as a load balancing solution to the Cilium managed pod. For example, I have a pod deployed here. I have a banana pod deployed here. And if I send a request from a public client to the public interface or the public IP of this Cilium node, and the Ingress Nginx controller will deploy Nginx pod. The Nginx pod will do the load balancing, take the client request, and based on the URL path, if it's to a banana, then send the request to the banana pod. Then if the URL path is to /apple, then send the request to the Apple pod. And so when the traffic cross the node through the node interface, the Cilium tunnel is used for traffic encapsulation. So conceptually, you can view this as a north-south node balancer node with a public interface and node interface in the cluster. So in this demo, I will use the like 10.3.72 /24 network as a public network. You can think of this as a internet as a cloud, public cloud network, and the client send a request to this public routable IP address. The Ingress Nginx controller will, the Nginx pod will take the request and the node balancing to the Cilium pod based on the URL. And so I'm going to do a demo like this. So here is my master node, demo 1. And so as you can see here, I have 3 nodes deployed, and each has Cilium deployed. And each node has a Cilium agent deployed. Okay, and so here is the Ingress Nginx controller. I'm going to deploy. So let's look at the deployment. So this is the Ingress Nginx controller deployment. And basically, I referenced this documentation from Kubernetes. And then, so this is for bare metal deployment. And so, but in my lab, they are not real bare metal. They're just a 3 VM virtual machine running in a VMware ESXi cluster environment. So it does not have to be a physical machine. You can deploy on the virtual machine. So what I used is the host network option here. So you can deploy the Ingress Nginx controller as the load port. So there is a few options. You can overload port services and or through Meta LB load balancer. So what I'm doing here is through host network via host network. So why I do this? Look at the diagram here. So I have this host network set to true for the Ingress Nginx controller. The reason I do this is this pod will run in the host namespace. So it has access to the public network interface and the cluster node interface. So there is some security concern if you run a pod in a host namespace, because this pod will have access to the host side. So you do need to have some security in place to make sure this pod is safely guarded. But other than that, you can. The benefit is this Nginx controller, Ingress Nginx controller, the Nginx pod deployed by this controller can listening on the public interface, listening services on the public network interface here. So, okay, let's look at the deployment. So here in the spec, I set host network to true, and the DNS policy by default is cluster first, which means it will use the Nginx pod will use the host name server as DNS resolution. But if you want to do DNS resolution for the cluster pod, and you can use this cluster first with the hostnet option here. So, and also in this lab, I do not use any webhook validating. So I comment them out. And here also related to webhook. So I comment them out. So here is one more thing. Where I deploy the Ingress Nginx controller, I wanted to deploy on a specific load. Like say, if I want to run the node as a load balancer, maybe the load has more CPU or memory configuration. So I can specify like the host name in the node selector. I can use the host name to specify the node I want the Ingress Nginx controller to be deployed. So I also comment out those webhook stuff. So just I don't need that in this lab. So yeah, so that's as simple as it. And let's deploy the Ingress Nginx controller. So in this Ingress Nginx namespace, let's deploy it. Okay, so deployed. Let's see if it's deployed on the third load. So here is the Ingress Nginx controller, and deployed on the third load. Okay, so that's our third load here. This is our third load. Okay. So we can look at the Nginx pod deployed by the Ingress Nginx controller with this this command. This is a Kubernetes Ingress Nginx plugin. Help. You can see what command it has in the Ingress Nginx namespace. So here is a Kubernetes Ingress Nginx plugin I installed, and it provides following command. So with this backend, you can inspect the dynamic backend of Ingress Nginx pod configuration. So which is basically the pod backend for upstream, and you can check the Nginx configuration. Use the conf. You can use the logs to monitor the Ingress Nginx instance logs. And so first, let's look at the conf configuration and deployed by the Ingress Nginx controller. And let's pipe it to temporary file and to look at it. And here is upstream. So this is like a typical Nginx configuration file, right? And so here is the interesting comment in the upstream balancer block. So here it says we no longer create upstream section for every backend, and the backends are handled dynamically using Lua. So which means, as you can see here in the server, there is no server list here in this upstream block. So it is managed dynamically by the Lua. So you can use install this Kubernetes plugin. I just showed you earlier, the Ingress Nginx plugin. And so then with this Kubernetes Ingress Nginx backend, you can inspect the backends. So right now I have not deployed any Ingress that is going to be monitored by the Ingress Nginx controller. So yeah, there's no server here, but even I deployed that, you will not see here because it's dynamically managed by Lua, and I use this to check the backend. Okay. Yeah, so this is one thing you need to be aware. So now I can deploy Ingress. So I have a sample Ingress here. So this is an Ingress, and I have a URL path here /apple. Then use this Apple services. Then /banana, use this call this banana services. So the Ingress Nginx controller will take this Ingress and configure the Nginx pod instance. Okay, so let's deploy this fruit Ingress. Okay, it's deployed, and now if we look at the conf, we can grab if we have a location /apple created. We should have okay. As you can see here now, location /apple is created, and a location here, one more. So we also have banana Nano created here locations. So once we send a request to /nano or /apple, we should get a request from the pod. And so let's check out the backend. And backend. So this is how I get the backend. And this is for default iPod services. So the backend here is the endpoints. So that's the pod, the iPod pod app IP address. That's the backend here. And for the banana services, the backend is here, endpoint. That's the banana pod. So the banana pod in this node, and the apple pod in this node. Okay, and we can check the pod IP address here. So that's the apple pod here on the second node. That's the banana pod here on the third node here. Right? So it matches this diagram. Banana on the third pod, apple pod on the second node. So when now I can do a client request to send it to this. This is a public IP address on this public interface. So I just, you know, in this deployment, I use this as a public subnet. It's not, it's private subnet, but we will see it as a public interface for this demo. So I will send a request to this address, and with a /apple, if I put a /apple, the request will come here. So let's verify that. And so this is my second node where the apple pod is on. Let's run a TCP down on the Cilium VXLAN interface, because as I said, the request is going through the Cilium VXLAN tunnel. And so here is the, let's see the public, okay, I'll log in another client here. So this is my client. Okay. So I will send a request to this Apple. Okay. So this is my request. Let's make it a bit bigger. Okay. Send this request. Let's make it bigger. And just so this is my third. This is my third node, and I have the IP address, the public IP address here. Okay, so I will send a request to this public IP address, and okay, then we have TCP down on the second node to see if the request actually forwarded through the Cilium VXLAN tunnel. Okay, now we get a response here, Apple, and our TCP down on the second node, we got the request here. So this is the first SYN packet, and this is a response. We got the Apple, And if we also look at the source IP address to the Apple pod, so this is the Apple pod IP address. This is a pod IP address. This is not a pod IP address. This is IP address from this third node here, from this third node as a load balancer. So the address actually I can show you here is the IP address on the Cilium host interface. So there's the Cilium, the third node, the load balancer will forward the request through this source IP and to the tunnel to the third node. Okay, to the second node, third node to the third node. And then we run TCP down on the Cilium VXLAN interface on this node. Okay, so it works. But if we send a request to /banana, and then it's, since it's a local pod, no need to forward the traffic through tunnel, and it will just, this part will just send the request back to the client. And yeah, we can do that test, and we should get a response. Banana. Okay. We got a banana, right? So yeah, so conceptually, we can use the Ingress Nginx controller host network 2 as a north-south node balancing to the Cilium pod through Cilium tunnel. So this has same effect as the if you use this as a view this as a big IP, but this is an open source solution, and have the same result. Yeah. Also, I have the sample here, like that's the sample app pod I have here, and the diagram here, and the Ingress Nginx controller sample here, and you can deploy. So yeah, so it's under here, docs, Ingress Nginx. Okay, so yeah, thank you for watching.